I'd like to talk a little bit about street theater, and this is a very interesting part of gang stalking and the whole gang stalking experience. Street theater refers to being out in public. Most often you're out in public, maybe at the supermarket or somewhere you normally go, and you'll notice something. It'll be a it's it's basically a performance by uh, people that you've most likely it's going to be people you've never met out in public, and they're going to be performing a routine in front of you. Now, you may or may not know that it's a routine, but it will be, if you've been going through this for a little while, you'll be able to see it as street theater. But it's a routine that is much like a play. They're performing a skit in front of you for several different reasons. It's for the same purpose of affecting you, but also they want to see how you're going to react in different social situations. So they'll put together little scenarios for you to see in public. You might be out walking or going for a walk. You might be even driving. You might be shopping. It could be anything you normally do, and they will set up in front of you and put on a little show for you to see intentionally. And oftentimes, and this has been also a mention by many other people, but it seems as though when these things are done, the quality of the acting is so poor that it's obvious that it's acting. It's almost as though you've walked into a cheap haunted house on Halloween where you've got the actors dressed up as zombies and they're making the zombie noises, walking toward you with their arms out. But it's that level quality of acting. It's just really bad acting, just really poor. I mean, it's so obvious that it's all being done for you to see, and it's just maybe two or three people together. Let's say you were in Walmart shopping and you were in the meat aisle, and there were two or three people in the meat aisle with you, and all of a sudden something starts to happen. It's always going to be a little bit different for everybody, but it's going to be a situation that's a little bit out of the ordinary. It's not going to be just other people shopping. They may suddenly a big argument may break out between two or three people and right in front of you, and it's clear that this is not really an argument because the 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 acting is as though you're in a bad haunted house, and it becomes more and more obvious that this is very much staged for you to see. It's to get a reaction out of you to see how you're going to react in a certain social setting. Uh, if I could share my most interesting encounter with street theater that I've had myself has been uh, has been while walking one night, and this is fairly recently, and it was months into this experience, not necessarily at the very beginning, but a little while into my gang stalking experience. I was walking and up the street that I live on, and it was after dark, and I happened to live near dealership, a car dealership, and as I'm walking past this car dealership, to my right, and mind you, I can count on one hand the times I've ever in my life, and I'm only 28 years old, but I can count on one hand the times I have ever been approached out in public or yelled at by random people for no reason. Uh, but as I'm walking on my right hand side, two middle-aged men with wide brim hats. I'm talking about like Western style, not sombreros, but kind of like you could think of country singer kind of hats. Two, what looked like 50-something-year-old, maybe middle-aged men came walking forward, and one of them began yelling out at me, and he said something like, hey boy, hey, stop. And he was trying to get my attention. And at first I didn't know if they were talking to me. Maybe it was somebody else and they were just being loud. They almost sounded a bit drunk to me. But I was just going to ignore it and keep walking. So I kept on walking and ignored it for a second. I thought maybe it was they were talking to somebody else. I mean, why would they? I don't know why they would pick me out. So I keep walking, and it sounds, they're behind me now. It sounds from the way that they sounded, it was as though they were following up behind me on foot, and I wasn't looking at them just yet because I didn't want to give them any attention. And it sounded as though they were beginning to follow me, and they continued yelling. So then I did turn around to just glance and see if this was the case, and they were walking in my direction, and they were even cupping, one of them cupped his hands in this fashion to get more volume, said, hey boy, look, hey boy, you're going the wrong way. And I turned around, and at that point, this was, as stated before, this was several months into my gang stalking, and I knew at this point, this is a skit. This is another one of these bad Halloween haunted house skits. I just kept on walking, and they kept walking behind me. It was at first the second that they started yelling at me, because I wasn't sure that they were talking to me. I wanted to just not pay any attention to it, but once I heard that they were following me, I did glance at them, and they continued to walk behind me. They didn't follow me all the way up to my home, but they did walk behind me for a good probably a good 20 feet at least, for a little ways, just enough to let me know that they were talking to me for sure. And toward the end, before they stopped following me, the one who had been yelling out at me, and I don't, to this day, I don't know why he said this or what significance this phrase has, but he yelled out, he cupped his hands, he yelled out to me, "You're going the wrong way. You're going down to Dallas. You're going down to Dallas." And then they both start, and this. I do not know what the significance of this particular phrase was, but they started. It was almost as though I heard feet. It was as though they were doing like like an old dance, like a do-si-do or something, and they had cowboy boots on, and they were clacking in the street and kind of dancing their feet, and it was as though they had steel-tip boots, and they were clacking the tips of their boots on the concrete to let me know that they had steel-tip boots on. And they were yelling, "Going down to Dallas. You're going down to Dallas. You're going the wrong way, boy," as I'm walking up to my house. So I got in the house, and they didn't follow me all the way up to my home, but that is one very aggressive example of street theater. Oftentimes, they're not going to directly make contact with you. They may not even speak to you directly in all cases, but they will do it to let you know that they're there and to get you to notice. And so I also wanted to make a video on that and talk a bit about street theater, because almost all people who have gone through gang stalking experience street theater.